House hacking can be really hard and challenging, but with grit and determination, you can really make anything happen. On this episode of the Happy House Hacking Podcast, I'm having a conversation with a good friend and client about how she was able to overcome adversity in the midst of her house hacking journey. Welcome back to the Happy House Hacking Podcast. I'm Camille, and I'm here with my good friend Emma, and also past client. And we're here to learn about how Emma has made living on the Central Coast of California possible through being a seasoned house hacker. So welcome, Emma.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Camille. It's very excited to be here and to share what we've learned to hopefully help others.
Yes. And I love everything about you. But what I love most is your grittiness and your ability to see what you want to make happen and work hard to make it happen. So I want to hear all about everything you've done over the last 6-7 years and how you and your husband have made it work. So let's go back to 2018. Mm-hmm. You're fresh out of college. You just got married. You're thinking about buying a house. And what happened?
Yeah. So in 2018, my husband and I, we really wanted to stay on the Central Coast. We had that vision of, we really want to stay here, find new jobs, and find a place to live that would help give us that stability kind of moving forward. So from there, my husband started looking, well, he'd been looking for the past couple years for something, but in 2018, he started looking on auction websites and looking for pre-foreclosures. And that's where he found our first home on auction.com. And it was a foreclosure, and the home was being owned by the bank at that point. And we made that decision of this is it. Let's kind of jump in. So that's how we ended up getting our first home. Was Austin went and knocked on the door and met the owner, and from there, we jumped into our first big fixer-upper project.
Okay, so buying a home from the auction website means you don't get to see the house. You don't get to do inspections. You know nothing about the property. You are going in blind. How did you do that?
Yeah, we looked at the Google Maps aerial, and we had driven by a couple times, and really it was a deal and an opportunity that we couldn't pass up. Financially, we were able to, purchase the home, and that was kind of it. It was on the Central Coast. It was in a nice neighborhood. The house itself didn't look that great on Google Maps, and it still doesn't if you look at the previous images of it. But it was something where we knew we wanted to stay here, and that was our opportunity. So it was too good of a deal to kind of pass up and jump into.
And it was a small house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How big?
Yeah. So it was a 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and it had like a little laundry area connected to it. So I think, it's about 600 square feet. So it's a small one, but it had a detached garage, and it's on 2 lots. So the potential for what it could be was definitely something we saw of, we could make, we can't necessarily buy every property, but we could make the property what we want it to be with that one. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, okay, you had your vision. You said, I want to be here on the Central Coast. What can I afford? You found the worst house in the best neighborhood. Mm-hmm. You knocked on the door, which is so bold. And I'm so proud of you guys for doing that. And you made it happen. So mega fixer-upper, was not turnkey, also super tiny.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was definitely, it was a whirlwind that first year. It was our first year out of college. We both had new jobs. We got a new puppy. It was our first year of marriage. It was kind of a year of firsts, but we persevered. We ended up living in a trailer in the backyard for our first year of marriage. Wow. And that was definitely had some challenges to it. But overall, for looking back, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I wouldn't have done it any differently.
So you're living in the trailer while you're fixing up the house.
Mm-hmm.
And you did that because the house wasn't really habitable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was the safest house. There was like eight members of a band living in the house at the time when we had purchased it. So basically, it all needed to be gutted and redone.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you do a fixer-upper? You'd never done one before. You're living in a small trailer on your property while you're fixing it up. How'd you do that?
Thankfully, my husband just has like a knack for working things out, and when he's determined to do something, he's going to make it happen. So with that, we called in the reinforcements. We called in all of my in-laws. Then they all came over and helped fill the dump trailer and kind of clear out the house. Then from there, Austin and I just learned project by project. So we'd see kind of the next step, and we'd ask family members or close friends saying like, hey, what do you think about this? Then we determine at that point, is it something that I'm doing? Is it something he's doing or we're doing together, or we're hiring out because it needs a skilled tradesman for it. So with that, just kind of little by little, we learned every step of the way of how to redo a house while living in a trailer.
And where did you learn? Like, how did you figure out, oh yeah, I could paint. Oh, I could do some baseboards. I could put up screens. How'd you do that?
Yeah, I think as far as just jumping in, you just kind of got to jump and go for it. So you can watch lots of YouTube videos or even just Google how to do things. And there's a lot of wonderful videos out there that will show you step by step of how to what to get at the hardware store, how to build the screen, how to make sure it, use it with just like a regular wrench, or you don't need a specialized tool. But there's a lot of videos that helped. And after that, it's just kind of getting over that initial barrier and saying, this job needs to be done, and we don't have the money to pay someone else to do it. So we're going to figure it out and go for it.
Wow. Wow. Oh, that's just so inspiring, especially for someone like me. I'm not the most handy, but when I have nothing else to do and I'm like, okay, I got to figure it out one way or another. And sometimes though, it is me asking Owen to do it. I'm like, this seems like an Owen job, but still, I absolutely love that you and Austin sat down and had a shared vision for what projects you wanted to accomplish. And you looked at your finances. You were able to say, yeah, we can't afford this right now. So we're going to figure it out between the two of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I didn't come from a background of being handy at all. I, grew up in San Diego, and, I didn't have any pets or anything, like no handiness at all. So it's definitely something that if you have that, like you said, the vision that we had and that determination, it's something anyone can do, really.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that was your first place, and you were living in the trailer for your first year of marriage. How big was your trailer?
Yeah, our trailer had a 1 bedroom to it, and a tiny bathroom and a tiny kitchen with a propane stove. And it was a small space. We definitely had, lots of challenges with that, as we have had with other small spaces. I recall I was, meal prepping breakfast burritos because when we're in construction and we're in a tight budget, it's really important for us to like still keep those regular habits of, seeing friends, seeing family, going and doing things that we can. And living a healthy lifestyle was still one of those important things. So here I am meal prepping in the trailer's kitchen, and I just cracked 12 eggs into a pan, and the propane goes out.
No, what?
And there were just so many little things like that of just living in a trailer where, now I can laugh about it. 6 years ago, if you asked me about making breakfast burritos in a trailer and having tortillas on the couch and everywhere, it was a sore subject, and it was definitely something to overcome. You don't realize just those daily things that, not having laundry on site, not having, a reliable heat source for food. Sometimes they're little barriers, but ultimately, now we just laugh about them, thinking about like, okay, well, we overcame those small daily things to be able to be where we are now.
Yep. Because you could have easily found a rental, lived in the rental while you were fixing up your house. but you chose to save money, to choose profit over comfort, extreme comfort. Okay. I mean, not having laundry, not having heat source for food. Yeah, that's big. But you did that in order to sacrifice, in order to make your dream a reality here.
Yeah. And I think that, coming right out of college, those were the years of life to do it. And these still are the years when we're young, we don't necessarily have a family to take care of. It's the two of us and that dream and the determination and the energy to make it happen. So I think it was just the right timing for us too.
Yep. Yep. So then a few years later, you and I are chatting. We're actually, just doing other real estate stuff. And I tell you about an off-market opportunity that we recently came across. And it was honestly a pretty flippant moment for me because I was just like, oh, Emma, by the way, there's a school place. Okay, see you later. Bye. And that stuck with you.
Yeah, you so casually mentioned it. You're like, maybe think about this. I'm not sure. It's in this neighborhood. And we got in the car because Austin wasn't with me at that time that we were chatting, nor was Owen. And I got in the car and I said, Austin, we have to go look at this house right now. It's in this neighborhood. Such a casual conversation with such a close friend. And you're someone I trust so much that when you were like, maybe this is for you. We saw it and I fell in love. I immediately had that vision of like, this is where we could start our family. Looking at the 1 bedroom, 1 bath that we were in, it was like, this is great. And it's perfect for the two of us, but long-term planning, we might need something a little bit bigger. So, driving by that house and, I wouldn't say the house was anything nice to look at. I still wouldn't say that. But looking at, like this is the neighborhood and it's right next to a park and it has a backyard, which is getting, even harder to find nowadays in SLO with all the new builds that are turnkey. Seeing that, that's the house for us. And I had the vision first. Austin was pretty hesitant. He was like, where's the money going to come from? What is this going to look like long-term? That's kind of a stretch on our budget. So it really took some time for us to have lots of conversations about the future and what kind of our next dream might be for us to get on the same page. And I think that's where like having your partner and being on that same page is so important because, you need someone in that relationship to think about all the, worst case scenarios and all of the budgeting scenarios. And you need someone like me to be like, no, look at this vision. And then finding the common ground together of figuring out how it could work. We ended up, purchasing that home that you so casually added into the conversation. But that's been our next project.
I love that. Well, what I really want to tap in on is how you were the one with the vision, but your husband wasn't, right? And there's so much value to listening to your spouse talk about something, especially with such passion. I even think about that in my own life when Owen has brought opportunities to me and I've immediately said, oh no, that's not for us. Next thing I know, it's in our life. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you were so right. I'm so glad that we talked about this and we collaborated. And that's a sign of a healthy marriage on your part for you and Austin, which is so great. But also you had that experience of your first place under your belt where you knew, hey, if I could survive this, then we can do anything. This project is so much better in comparison to our first one because we can live a little bit more comfortably, not by much, but a little bit more. And, that's what I love is that you had that shared vision and you were able to make it happen.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, as we're talking about house hacking and trying to figure out how we'd make it work, the big thing is add a studio over the garage.
Yeah.
So with that, looking at the numbers and looking at, the interest rate and what the mortgage would be, we realized if we live in the studio, which was an upgrade from the trailer, but also it was moving out of our home that we had just remodeled. Like we had just put in the finishing touches and the floating shelves of our house in Los Osos. But then we realized, hey, if we live in this studio for a short term and we rent out the main house, then we might be able to save up and, fix it the way that we like to make it that home. And, that it's not right now, but in the hopefully soon future, it will be. So having that over the garage, I think that was a no-brainer for us too, looking at the property of being, it's a little bit of a stretch. Our budget's going to need to be tighter. And also, we could get this additional income to help support us with it.
Yes, yes, exactly. And I love how you mentioned it was an upgrade, right? Because you had the trailer, then you finally get into your new house you spent over a year fixing up. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful what you did. And then you move right away to another small space, another bit of inconvenience, really tiny. I'm sure it was hard to regulate your schedules when one of you wanted to be up longer than the other, and having to figure out timing of that, because living in a studio isn't very convenient or fun. And you did it. And you're still doing it. You're still in the middle of projects, which is okay. It was a big undertaking.
Yeah. No, we're still in the studio, so we are. There's a lot that's happened in between. Not to say 60 years ago, and now we're still in the studio. But we just moved back recently for the last 8 months of being in the studio, and there's still those things. There's still those daily choices that we're making of, like you were saying, of. I like to go to bed early, but if I turn off the lights, then, Austin doesn't have that space because it is the one room. And similar, if he wants to wake up and journal in the morning, we are both waking up and journaling in the morning. So there's those little daily things, or, the water pressure is pretty questionable at this point, but it's those daily things that, we see it and we're struggling through it. It is hard. I'm not going to lie. There's definitely challenges in it, but finding with, Austin, that we both give each other grace. I think that's huge, of recognizing, we didn't sleep well last night because of, the studio is very hot right now, or recognizing the circumstances of it, giving each other grace, and also communicating, what the needs are. So, for instance, in the studio, we don't have a table. So I was like, where are we going to eat? Where was I going to work remote from for some of the days back in COVID? And Austin was like, okay, we'll build you a table and we'll put it in the backyard. So even communicating those needs and finding those short-term solutions has really helped us through some of the hard times of the studio.
Yeah, I know. And we haven't even talked about how both you and your husband have full-time jobs. This has all been stuff on the side. It's not like you're spending all day, every day doing fixer-uppers and house hacking. You are doing it on the side in your limited time that you have.
Yeah. It's definitely a balance where we're both full-time professionals. Saturdays, when we're in construction mode, our construction days, and our family and our friends know, I would ask them what they're doing on Saturday, but I'm sure they're, sanding something or doing some kind of construction.
Picking up 2x4s from Home Depot. And
exactly. But we found that balance of, we started saying, hey, Sundays are family days. Sundays are days of rest. And that's something that we didn't learn 5 years ago. In the first remodel, we worked day and night around our jobs, and that's how we ended up in the trailer in the first place, to be close to the project. But this year, with entering into the project with some of the backing that we've had before, we're pretty strict to Sundays are a no work day, unless it's a fun, we'll go to a coffee shop and choose a vision for the next, what do we think this room would look like, or, those fun things. But we're not actually doing manual labor on Sundays anymore.
Well, that's good that you started recognizing the imbalance of the amount of work you were doing, to be able to say, hey, this is not healthy for us, because nothing is worth sacrificing your relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Well, one thing that I would love to hear more about is what you've been doing while house hacking. You've been doing some short-term rentals, some long-term rentals. Talk to us briefly about how you're managing it, because you don't have a property manager.
Yeah, so I'm also the property manager of our home. So as I mentioned, we just moved back into the studio. So with our first home, we made it an Airbnb. So if anyone's interested, Back Bay Getaway, we are accepting bookings on Airbnb. But that's been something that's been a huge blessing this last year. It has been a lot to learn, how the website works. What does it look like to have tenants? What days can I clean? What days do I need to get some help with? So that's what we've been doing with our first home. We were able to fix it up so nice that it was almost too nice for us to live in. When we talk about that comfort versus profit, it makes more sense financially for us right now to do a short-term rental there in order to get that profit to work towards our next project. The other house that we got that has the studio over the garage, we were living in the studio, and we've been doing a long-term rental in the front house. So with that, we learned about getting tenants, how to share that backyard and share the laundry with our tenants, and just all that goes around with that. So we've been very thankful to have some really great tenants that made it easier as we go. But yeah, and in addition to construction and full-time jobs, we are property managers, and it's one of those things, like I talked about before, is like, now's the season of life. It's just the two of us. We have the energy, we have the time, and we got these opportunities that now's the time to really jump in and choose profit over comfort, so that in the future, when the main house is all remodeled, we'll have that house and we'll start that family, and we'll move towards our comfort stage. But for right now, it's, let's do what we need to do to make these dreams and visions that we have together happen.
Yep. Yep. So what keeps you going, Emma? These are hard days. What kept you going without feeling so defeated when your propane went out in the trailer, or you're sharing laundry with the residents who live in the front house? How are you doing that and staying positive and continuing forward in the midst of this adversity?
Yeah, I think one of the main things that we talked about was, working together with Austin. I think having the two of us have that dream that we want to accomplish together, and have this vision of what our family, could look like, and what our family home could look like. I think that really drives a lot of it. Additionally, having that person next to you that's supporting you and that you're giving grace to and communicating with, so that, when the day's hard for me, Austin will work to support me. And when the day's hard for him, I'll work my best to support him. So I think having that strong partnership and that strong dream together, really having both of us on the same page, makes a huge difference.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. That is key. And what I love about your story is you are real and authentic in, we don't know what we're doing. We're just learning as we go. Mm-hmm. Because so many of the objections that I hear are, oh, well, they're already handy to begin with, or they're in the real estate industry, so they know what they're doing, or whatever it is. There's always something. There's always some type of limiting belief. Mm-hmm. But you guys are just everyday people who are doing it with no real estate background, mm-hmm. with no contractor background. Mm-hmm. You are figuring it out. You are watching YouTube. Mm-hmm. You are getting free education by reading things. You're writing your own contracts. You're doing everything possible mm-hmm. to save money, to do it on your own, and you're failing forward fast. It's amazing.
Thank you. I think, when you said like, we're just everyday people, that's more so what it feels like when you say, seasoned house hacker, and these are the things you're doing. It's like, oh, wow. Yeah, I'm just living day to day. I'm just an everyday person. But you're right. Once you set that vision, like, you can do it.
Yep, mm-hmm. Exactly. I always say, if you believe it, then anything can happen, right? And that's where getting on the same page, you have that support, mm-hmm. you're doing it together. That's what makes a difference, is you are giving yourself and each other the confidence to move forward. You fail together, you learn together, and the choices you're making today are so much different than what they were 6 years ago, mm-hmm. because you have that experience under your belt. And I just love that. I love that you just went out, made it happen, and it all started with a brave door knock on your part. And that's what it comes down to, is just being bold, gritty, and hardworking. So thanks for sharing everything, Emma. I'm just so proud of you. And I'd love for you to share any last comments or encouragement to listeners on how they can get their start being a young person in California.
Yeah, I brought so we have this little plaque that hangs in our house that my sister-in-law got me. And it's right by our front door. I walk by it every day, and I think just a word of encouragement for everyone who's looking and trying to get into their first home. So it says, "Love grows best in little houses with fewer walls to separate, where you eat and sleep so close together you can't help but communicate. And if we had more room between us, think of all we'd miss. Love grows best in houses just like this." So that's my word of encouragement is, little homes make for wonderful memories that, you laugh about years down the road, and make for great dreams and memories to come in the future.
That's so good. I need to get that. That is so good. Oh, well, thanks, Emma, so much for joining us and for sharing your wisdom. If you are curious to learn more about house hacking, by all means, come check us out on YouTube. You can reach out to us. And if you're curious to connect with Emma and learn more about her, then feel free to reach out to us too. So thanks so much for joining, and thanks for everyone for listening today.